Hey, you've made it to Spry Space, where people managing social media accounts come for community. This year, our focus is social media for good. Together, we can work to make social media a landscape for healthy online communities to grow. Sound good? Then come along with us on the Spry Space podcast, where we share what we know, learn what we don't, and strive to make social media better for us all. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Spry Space podcast. I'm Lacey, and today I have our lead digital strategist, Adrienne, here with us. We've also got a special guest on the podcast today that we're excited about. Brett Dillahunt is here. Brett founded a Facebook group and a nonprofit called Mustangs For Mustangs, and he also has a very special connection to Adrienne. He was Adrienne's high school history teacher. Is that right?
That is correct.
Well, it is so nice to have you here. Adrienne, do you mind kind of introing Brett just a little bit? Tell us a little bit about who he is and why you thought of bringing him on for Social Media for Good.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had an amazing experience in high school with Mr. Dillahunt as my teacher, and just an awesome history teacher. Makes everything fun and makes learning fun, the best kind of teacher. But after you go to college and you kind of go out on your own, and it's kind of that sadness of your high school and all your mentors and everybody kind of just fades into the background as you go out into your life. And but with social media, that isn't really the case anymore. But so I was able to reconnect with people from high school and my teachers, but then I noticed something 7 years ago it's kind of nuts that it's already 7 years, but I noticed Mustangs for Mustangs in my newsfeed because, I'm still friends with many people from my hometown. And so I saw these posts from Mustangs for Mustangs popping up, and I saw Brett talking about Mustangs for Mustangs, and I've just been following it, following their journey through the years. The most amazing part of Mustangs for Mustangs is that I grew up in this town, Prosser, and it's so fun, and it's just so impactful to see the real stories of how Mustangs for Mustangs changes people's lives and helps out in needed areas. So it's kind of just this tangible work that I could see happening in my community. And so that's why I thought, oh my gosh, Brett, we have to have him on for Social Media for Good, because everything I see from Brett and from Mustangs for Mustangs is the epitome of Social Media for Good. So, yeah. Yeah. I got a 5. We were just talking about, bragging about our AP scores. Lacey and I. Yeah. Although the one I'm the most proud of is my 3 in Spanish, because I definitely thought I was going to fail that one, and I got a 3, and I was so happy. Although it's all gone out my brain, but I need to download an app or something, because I feel like I could dip my brain.
We'll start working on it on the side. Yeah. I could do it with you. Okay, so I always like to, before we get into the meat of everything we're going to talk about today, I always like to ask if there is a piece of social media content this week that you consumed that brought you joy. So, Brett, do you have anything from the week that you consumed that brought you a little bit of joy?
Well, I know this is going to seem like a cliche answer for sure, but but I have to say the cat lawyer.
That was a good one.
Just because it shows, how perfectly human everybody is, and everybody's just doing the best they can.
How
sometimes the best you can is hilarious.
Oh, that's a good answer. All right, well, Adrienne gave us a little bit of a background on the group, but why don't you kind of give us from the beginning, Brett? Give us just some background on the group, the nonprofit you started, Mustangs for Mustangs, what it's called, when it was formed, and then we'll kind of go on from there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both for having me, first of all. It's not often that you get the opportunity to just reflect a little bit on the journey you've been on, as well as how you got to this point. And so it's really nice to have this conversation. I've been teaching in Prosser, a small town in south central Washington, for almost 30 years. And And I had taught here for over 20 years before I started this group. And it started almost completely by accident, in that I was just sitting on my couch one day trying to figure out how I could organize a few of my friends into like a rapid response team that could help people that had emergency needs. Prosser's a fairly poor community, and so there are a lot of just economic need that's out there. And so I wanted to do something. And as soon as we started it, as soon as we called it Mustangs for Mustangs and we posted it up, within a month there was 1,500 members. It just snowballed quickly. Wow. And so we realized that we had something going here. We had an opportunity, and we had to kind of build it in progress. A lot of other people jumped on. I always tell people I can't take credit for Mustangs. I just get the privilege to operate it. And so we had a former student who is a nonprofit lawyer and managed to draw up the paperwork and get us approved by the IRS. We had someone who works with digital media who showed up to help us build our website and to get us out there. Another person who runs a printing design company designed our stationery for free. Everybody contributed talents to build this as it went. And it evolved into something that offered people help in 6 key areas, which is primary housing, food security, which is a huge problem in our area, medical need, utility assistance, which is huge right now in the wintertime, as well as personal safety, including domestic violence and homelessness, and then last but not least, primary transportation.
So when you started this out, how over time has the purpose evolved? You know, has the purpose stayed pretty consistent to what you imagined it would be, or has the group kind of evolved and taken on a life of its own?
It's safe to say I had no idea what I was in for. There was no way to tell what this would be like, and how it would evolve and grow over time. It has stayed fairly consistent to its purpose of helping people, but the skills of being able to use a social media network of people, to use the connections themselves, to facilitate that help in a timely fashion when it's most needed by people that are in emergency situations. That's the skill I didn't walk in with, that I had to develop just through experience. And that's kind of where the group went from that. But in addition to that, the people that participate on a regular basis, the people that help me with facilitating a lot of emergency need, they've gotten better at it also. They now know what to look for and have some training and experience in how to participate, and that's just multiplied our effect.
Mm-hmm. I will say, as because I don't live in Prosser, anymore, and there's a time where I kind of just didn't really look at Facebook. Everyone kind of has these, I feel like people have these ebbs and these flows of using social platforms, which I can have theories on. Sometimes, you'll just be on Instagram more and you won't even look at Facebook, or you won't, you'll go over to TikTok forever and lose your mind, or whatever. But I've noticed, throughout time, because I think I've been part of the group since probably the very beginning, very, very early. I joined in because I'm a Mustang, and there's that kind of that hometown pride of being a Mustang that I feel like a lot of people just have. But I've noticed that there have been a few conversations that Brett just dealt with diplomatically and just beautifully. I've never seen any fights or anything, mm-hmm. But I just feel like there definitely have been times where, Brett will come in and say, you know what, we don't talk about this on this page, or please refer to our rules. We're not going to post this anymore. But it's kind of I've noticed that every once in a while, but now I don't notice that at all, because people are trained in what they can or cannot say or, post. So it's kind of funny just kind of seeing it, watching it grow kind of from the sidelines.
Yeah, how does that come into play moderation-wise? I mean, people have different ideas about entitlement versus service versus, not everybody who comes from the same town has the same idea of how we help people. So how do you keep a group cohesive and focused and purpose-driven when everyone has such different ideologies?
Right. Well, it's interesting. I mean, Prosser is a fairly politically opinionated town, and it's also a fairly religious town. And we started from the very beginning, no religion, no politics on this page. And most people agree with that. They're relieved to find that there can exist a space on social media where that doesn't have to be a driving topic. We've all been exposed to the toxicity of social media in certain circumstances, and to have a place. And we sometimes refer to that post specifically, where we'll post an update saying, just by the way, this is a 2020 election free space. There won't be any debates on here between Trump or Biden, and no one cares who you voted for. We're just going to help people today. And so a lot of times people are looking for something positive in their news feed that they don't worry about going down that road. And since it has nothing to do with the mission, it has nothing to do with the ways in which we help people, that's pretty easy to enforce.
I saw one of the posts from a couple weeks ago in the group that says, I love how you do this as well. You know, I don't know how often you do it, maybe every week, maybe every other week, but you had a post up here that says, you helped pay someone's rent today and brought food to another. We didn't ask who they voted for, you know, and it's like, it's just such a beautiful, who can argue with that, you know, and who wouldn't want to see that something that they're doing is contributing to the betterment of someone else's life. I would agree that that's definitely right in that definition of this social media for good that we're trying to really promote and accomplish. And I just love seeing it in practice that way. And then you've got 298 likes on it. You know, we've got to pay big money to get that many likes on a post for our brands, you know? So I love seeing that. That's a perfect example of it.
Well, thank you. I think people also love the idea that they're a part of something, and I like reminding them that it's them that's doing this. I get to deliver the help, but it's their donations and their volunteers, as well as identifying the need for us, that even makes it possible. And so social media for good, where you can be a part of something larger than yourself, it can come right into your homes, into your daily lives, and you can participate. And in numbers, there is strength. The network is power, as I like to say.
So let's talk about the logistics of the group a little bit. I want to know how it works. So how do you actually end up getting funds that you can share with people? How do the requests come in? How do they get actually fulfilled, those requests? Tell me a little about the logistics.
So we are an IRS-approved charity, and so we can take donations online and in person, and use those in a group-sponsored bank account in order to facilitate the need when it calls for using funds. And the nice part about that is it means we can act quickly most times. We have resources available, and there's not a lot of red tape or a lot of paperwork. The requests to me come in a variety of forms, and it just depends usually who's asking. And so a lot of times it's over Messenger. It's a small town where most people know each other, and I'm also Facebook friends with most of them too. But Instagram, Twitter, Facebook Messenger, and a lot of times just over the phone. And so a lot of our clients are Spanish speaking only, and most of the time they're calling me. They're not on Facebook and they're not following the group, but they've heard of us and the number's out there. And so it's really any way in which someone can get a hold of us. We have an email form as well that gets used occasionally. We tried to plug into the community as many ways as we could so that we would be easy to access when they needed us.
You know, as social media managers, we often have very many channels that we have to try to look at and make sure that we're answering messages to and whatnot. How do you manage having to be responsible for all those channels and because it's not like they're just asking questions like, how are you today? They're like people with legitimate needs. And that's got to be a lot of pressure to have to monitor so many different channels. How do you manage that both logistically and emotionally?
Right. I guess, well, this is our 7th year of operation, and so I've gotten a little bit used to it in that this is just sort of what a normal day is like, is just bouncing between these different channels and looking at the communication that I get. But you're right in the sense that being able to find a time period where you can set it all down and not engage with it for a while just to rest your brain, that's a little hard to come by. People have emergencies when they have emergencies, and they can't be convenient about it. And so sometimes it's 1:30 in the morning, and sometimes it's just during the business day. And And we want to be as responsive as possible because we're the last resort. They haven't come to us unless they're really in need. It's a small town and most people know everybody. So most people don't want to ask for help. If they've actually taken the step, that means they need help now, especially when it comes to food.
How do you think you've been able to set yourself up as a safe space for people to be vulnerable like that? Because it does take, a huge amount of courage and humility to ask. And, you've got to be a safe space for people to be vulnerable enough to ask.
And it's true. Part of that is just, I think, a reputation we've built over time. Everything that people ask us for help for is confidential. In a small town, that's absolutely essential. We don't talk about our clients. We don't talk about their needs. Not even my board. Here's the actual names of the people that are getting help. So that's part of it, is just keeping the town secrets. It's not that difficult, and it's absolutely essential to keep their trust. And also because it's a small town where I've taught for 30 years, many of the clients I've worked with in the classroom before, and now I'm working with their children. So when you've had a longer term relationship with the community itself, it's a little easier to get to that point, I think.
Adrienne, would you say he's earned that trust?
Oh, yeah.
Overall, it's not something that's given, it's earned.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and I was also going to say, just like, Brett, in class, you're very, I don't know the right word for it, is diplomatic, but also just, the right word for it is just kind of like, you're very objective. You're very just like, you non-judgmental, like as a teacher, as an educator. And I think, as a teaching history and civics, you have to, that's kind of a quality of a historian. You really have to be impartial to your feelings. But I think just like, yeah, you set the tone with everybody, and then, but also you set the tone online. You mentioned that, people, you can't really tell when people are going to have emergencies, but with Mustangs for Mustangs, you all just do take a breaks, but you're very clear about that. You'll post like, we're taking a break from Christmas to January 9th, or, it's just kind of like you communicate. You create the space by communicating and setting those very clear and honest boundaries, and you always abide by those boundaries. And so I think that just modeling that and being about that all the time, it's very easy for people to trust you, right? What doesn't work is when we find with social media and like brands is when they say something, but they're not about it. Like they don't do what they say they're going to do. So it's just so easy to see that trust and how it's not easy to get, but just like it comes when you do what you say you're going to do. And that's pretty much it.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. There was an experience I had recently with, because like I said, we do get messages in a variety of forms, and someone had posted on our Facebook page, and it's still up there. I needed help a couple of years ago, and I asked for help, and we didn't get anything at all. So apparently Mustangs for Mustangs is really choosy about who they help. And obviously they were upset about that. And so I was like, I don't know who this person is. I don't remember the request. Went back through my messages, and sure enough, had asked for help, and I had just missed it. It had just went right by me like a pitch. And it was like 2 years ago. Oh, man. Right? And so in that kind of circumstance where, yeah, you're trying to build trust with the community and you have made a mistake, it's important to publicly own that, which we did. And we contacted, never heard back from the person. So they're going to think what they think. But it's a very human endeavor, which has the potential for human mistakes as well.
There have to be expected, more than just avoided. They're going to come no matter what, and it's about how you respond.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very difficult when you're talking about emergency needs and you know that you didn't meet that one. Boy, those ones stick with you.
Mm-hmm. It does, but just with social, with all that, you can have 20 positive things happen, and then like the one time you disappoint somebody or you make a mistake or even a typo is called out or I don't know, something, and you're like, what? Oh no, it's the one thing
that's
you
where
focus
the focus
on.
Goes. Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that's what with Spry, we really work with our clients definitely to like, that's kind of one thing that we really do work through with our clients. Like there's going to be mishaps, there's stuff like that is going to happen, but most important thing is to own it publicly and not try to hide it. I was actually wondering, have you had to have there been any difficult conversations that you either had to use the hide feature or the mute feature or kick anybody out? Have you ever had to do that?
Yeah, it's exceedingly rare. There have been a few cases. In one particular case, and I want to be a little careful how specific I get, a member of our community had died from COVID. And so we had, with the family's permission, posted the obituary announcement to try to bring home that this is a personal safety issue, that COVID is real and it has taken someone from us. And someone tangentially related to the person jumped on the page, said it wasn't from COVID, didn't know what I was talking about. It was the day after this person had passed, and the family is seeing this. And so not only did I remove her from the conversation, I removed her from the page. And I didn't really think there was anything else to do in that circumstance. Opened a channel of communication if she wanted to talk about it, didn't take advantage of that. But it's the community that you're protecting more than it is an individual. And there are egregious examples sometimes of where the communication breaks down or when there's an abuse of the community that you provided. And it's important to remember that social media isn't a 100% free speech zone, that it has purposes and boundaries, and it's okay to enforce those.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I was going to ask, so that was an egregious example. Have you ever worked through something with somebody where they are then allowed back in again? Like you mentioned that you opened the door of communication for that person, but they didn't take it. But have you ever been able to kind of get through to somebody about how they're supposed to communicate on the page?
We resolved misconceptions or miscommunications before. That's pretty commonly easy. The same way you often do in a classroom. Just where someone misunderstands why you did something or how something went down, oftentimes with a parent. And once you actually get them to sit down in the room and have the conversation, everybody's fine. So yes, that's definitely happened where misconceptions have been cleared up. But it has been so rare. Off the top of my head, I can think of 2 people in 7 years that we had to remove from the page. So I think if you stay true to your mission and everybody understands what that is, it's usually not a problem.
Yeah. I know, Lacey, we have some more lists. We have our schedule that we're supposed to go through, but I'm wondering, I have a question for Brett that's
you keep going. I'll fill in what we need to.
Okay. Being a high school teacher and also being a citizen of the internet, have you witnessed any similarities between the two and how people communicate in high school scenarios? Rumor mills, what actually happened, how to dispel misinformation, being a teacher in high school, and then also looking at the at Facebook, for instance. Are there anything that we could take from being a high school teacher and apply to Facebook?
Leading communities on social media? Absolutely. That's a great question.
It is a great question. And add an extra layer to that, someone who started their teaching career before there was public internet. So
no way.
So managing
You must have started
managing what a classroom community is like before there is social media content, and then watching as the internet develops, the Wild West where no one knows how to do this, and now where it's fully integrated into your classroom and your student community. And so you've really had to adjust how you had to handle both communities. But today it's definitely blended. There's overlap to where you can't tell the differences anymore so much.
Wow.
So how do we use your great teaching skills to lead our communities towards social media for good instead of, the way that they divert sometimes into negativity and whatnot.
Well, when you say social media for good, I mean, I would like to emphasize the good part of this. That if that's what you're using your platform and social media or your business or your brand, if you're using it towards a common good, then the rest of it usually follows. If you stay focused on the purpose of helping other people, most of the rest falls into place as long as you're consistent with all of that. And so I think most people don't realize the potential that the networks they already have contain in order to help other people or to alleviate situations. We're always using it for pictures of cat lawyers or just a basic communication with people. But the networks that you've built online have vast potential to alleviate human suffering, to meet needs, and just improve the society. And I would really love it if we could unlock that potential on a more widespread basis.
Yeah.
If only we all have the courage to ask and organize,
Yeah. And to be about it, like in our own jobs. I mean, I'm in several social media manager professional groups online, and there's always questions and discussions that happen, and I kind of jump in here and there. But one question came up today, and actually it reminded me of I thought about this podcast, and somebody asked a question around it was like the industry, the community manager industry report. How the industry reports have these like white papers, and they're supposed to be super fancy and stuff. But basically there was some statistic that said community managers are displeased with the platforms available, Facebook, Instagram, whatever the platforms are to build community, and they want different platforms or better platforms. And then they're kind of asking what would be the perfect platform. And I'm like, it's not the tools. It's not the tool's fault. It doesn't matter what tool you create. You have to have good communication. If you have good communication and you're a good leader, you're going to have an awesome community, whether or not you're writing letters to each other. Brett, I'm sure you have figures from history, people that were great leaders that did not have social media, but they managed to have amazing have
impact.
Yeah, have great impact. But anyway, I just get frustrated sometimes when people we get kind of just lost, or like we trip ourselves up, and I'm like, it's not rocket science, guys. We don't need to invent Facebook 2 or 3 or whatever. Like, just be about your community. But I think sometimes people like to imagine how things can be easier, which is
without taking personal responsibility for the actions they could take, perhaps.
Yeah, good things are hard work, man. So anyway,
from Adrienne,
you bring up a good point.
Good things, hard work.
There's a perfect historical example, Adrienne, that you just mentioned. Back in the 1930s, President Roosevelt gets on the radio and talks to 80% of Americans and reassures them every single Saturday in a radio message, telling them things are going to be okay. He put everything in simple terms. He could relate to ordinary Americans and what they were going through. And just that once-a-week message using social media and radio in those days achieved the same purpose, building a nationwide network towards the same purpose. It's essentially the same.
I like that example a lot.
I knew you'd have a good example.
You did. You just had to prompt him. That's all. So I'm going to take us back to just one little bit on the logistics. So tell me, the needs come in. You've got some funds that are consistently available. How do the requests actually end up getting fulfilled when somebody has that need for rent or food or gas or what it is? How do those things get fulfilled?
Right. So it helps if you keep everything as simple as possible. So we don't have any employees. Nobody gets paid. Our overhead is about $30 a month, which includes a post office box and our website. And so everything else can go into the mission that we're fulfilling. And so all I need to know is, are you a resident of Prosser? Have you ever gone to Prosser schools? And are you the immediate family of someone that did? As long as I know you're in the universe, okay. I need your address, your phone number, and the need. There's some annual limits we have. We can't help everybody as much as they might need us to. So as long as they still qualify and are eligible, and it fits in our 6 areas of need, we can fulfill the request almost immediately. There's short amounts of paperwork to document where the funding went, so that people can contact them and find out auditors, that kind of stuff. But if I'm not super busy and backed up, it'll take a few hours usually. Then we can use the bank account. We can drive down. We can provide the aid immediately. It's really quite simple. And if you keep it simple and how it's organized, then you're quicker. You're just more efficient. And so people like that part as well. Like if I go to a government agency and fill out the paperwork and wait to get approved, correct the errors, and sometimes it's 6 weeks out before the unemployment kicks in. Versus they're turning off the lights tomorrow. None of that's going to help me. And so if you can use your social network to build an efficient system, and then people come to trust you for that as well. You're the person I go to when I really need.
Trust was exactly the word I was thinking there. When you trust is what can lead to that ongoing vulnerability, right? If there were too many people that had experiences where they didn't see the thing get fulfilled, then there wouldn't be the trust, there wouldn't be the ask, and people wouldn't feel like they were contributing to something. So as you've maintained that consistency, you've built that trust over time.
I think that's probably true, and I also like to think of the people that are asking for help. And Adrienne mentioned it earlier. That's a huge ask to admit that you need this particular help. So to be able to do it in a way that's really almost invisible, the food can just show up on a porch. You don't even have to see my face, and then the food is just in the fridge, and no one needs to know where it came from. You can be the hero of the family. I don't care, just so that the food is there. And to restore some people's dignity as well, that many people have been through this experience, so have I, and to not make that be a crime in society, that occasionally you're going to need a hand, and it shouldn't be a big thing.
Yeah.
Do you have to teach that vulnerability in the group? Do you have to model it at times, or has it come pretty naturally over time now?
I'm not totally sure how to answer that. I think if you stay focused on your mission of doing good, it kind of occurs organically. And then partly the connection that I've had in the classroom where people already knew me. I wasn't just a person in an agency. They already had a relationship with me. And then I think there's probably another element to this where the stories that we do post online, the generic stories about helping someone with gas or rent today, where people can just see the tangible ways in which they can help by being a part of this. I think that adds to people's collective understanding of what happens.
Yeah. Also the other golden rule of marketing, which is, word of mouth. Your friend has recommended something. It's not like somebody who is desperate and they are Googling like support in my community or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they're Googling around. They're asking probably a very trusted person, or if they don't know you already, they're going to ask somebody who's trusted, because this is, like you said, Brett, really difficult and painful thing that you're going through. You're going to ask somebody who you trust, and they recommend Mustangs for Mustangs. And I mean, I've seen it a few times in conversations, not even on Mustangs for Mustangs. I've seen it in my old, high school group. I've seen that happen. And, it's kind of, that is like the golden rule for like communication, is it doesn't really matter how much you advertise something. If somebody recommends something to somebody else, that extra layer of trust is there. And so you also have that. I mean, that's just why the community is so freaking powerful, is that it's a very close-knit community. And there's probably an element of that you don't even kind of witness on Mustangs for Mustangs. It's like in conversations around.
Yes, it is true. We even have a term for it in the group. This just happened this last week, where I went to help a particular family in a location just outside of town. And the next day I got a call from someone, and I asked for their address, and it was right next door to that particular person. And I came back twice more to this little cluster of homes where it was pretty obvious that everyone had simply said, "Hey, this worked. They showed up," and it spread to the other people in the group. And so, popcorn need, we call it, where we just are able to identify need that would never have come to the website, had never been in the group per se. They just knew that this worked, and they trusted their neighbor, and we got to identify some more that way.
So I'm curious about how far the help has reached over time. So, you've got this idea that your group is really regionally focused. Everyone has to have come from Prosser, have an immediate family member in Prosser, but that doesn't mean that the help is only in those city limits. So how far has the help that Mustangs for Mustangs, how far has it actually reached?
Right. Well, it's farther than I ever imagined, for certain. Adrienne graduated a while ago from Prosser High School, but she's a Mustang, and so wherever she's living, wherever, hey, not as far along as I did, but where she's living now, she's in the network, and there's another powerful aspect of that as well, that you're a member of this for the rest of your life. Whether we were friends, whether I knew you that well, you're in this umbrella, you're under this group, you're not alone, and so it very quickly spread. At this point, after 7 years, we've managed to conduct missions in all 50 states, and we just finished in our 10th foreign country.
Wow.
So the network is actually, it sounds cliche, but it's worldwide. It's worldwide.
That's awesome.
I know people like you who are helpers by nature and caretakers by nature. You're constantly focused on the need and fulfilling the need. Do you ever take a minute to step back and look at it and feel really fulfilled and see the impact and be pleased with yourself?
It certainly is fulfilling. But I think maybe a more accurate word for that is compelling. And I know that if either of you were in my position or had started a similar network yourself, where you were empowered with the resources to do this work, there wouldn't be any way that you could say no. So I always feel that privilege in this position, that this blessing that I get to be in the driver's seat and be the person that connects resource to need on a daily basis. I don't have to be helpless. We don't have to stand by. We can actually do something about that. And that is fulfilling, but it's also compelling to be able to build a community where you can do this every single day for the rest of your life.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I think it's amazing. All 50 states, 10 countries. I wouldn't have expected that with a town like Prosser, as small as it is, and the impact that people from one area all working together could accomplish. It's impressive.
I was just going to say, can I give you an example as a story of a client that we were able to help that exemplifies what a network can do. And it was very recent. It just happened a couple of weeks ago. And through one of my former board members, who is also a teacher, she notified me that we had a mutual former student that was in a domestic violence situation in Mexico and needed to get out. And so here we are dealing with a foreign country and a place where we don't have a well-established network, where the laws are different. And then there was an immigration issue in that this was a legal resident, but the abuser took her green card, which she needs to re-enter the United States. This starts about dinner time, about 6 p.m. on one particular day, and I know this board member very well and trust her implicitly, and so I'm like, we're in. We'll do whatever we can. And found out where she was at and a way in which to get in touch with her that wasn't endangering to her situation. And that very night, someone put her in a car and drove her through the mountains from Morelia and Michoacan to Guadalajara in Jalisco, Mexico, which is not an easy trip. And to go at night on those roads through those mountains in that particular part of Mexico, that's how desperate she was to leave. And so when I say the compelling part, when someone is in that circumstance and you're empowered to help, how can you not? And so just by luck of the draw, by the synchronicity of the planets, or whatever you want to say, we happened to have a Mustang former intern who was living in Guadalajara at the time. She's living there with her husband. And so I get in touch with her, and she said her husband and I were in. We'll do whatever we can to help. And they ended up meeting them in Guadalajara the next day. We reserved hotel rooms from here. We facilitated contact with the consulate. All things that we could do from inside my house with this network. And 3 days later, she got on a plane from Guadalajara to Tijuana, where a relative picked her up and brought her across the border. So to be able to operate in a foreign country in a circumstance where someone's life is in danger, and to have the resources to do that, and just to have a former Mustang perfectly placed to be on the ground and helping in that situation. And it's those kinds of circumstances where you're like, I can't quit doing this work. How could you turn away from future need, knowing that the network can do this kind of good? And today she is home in Prosser.
Dang. That's amazing. That is so awesome.
I've got 30 stories like that one.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's amazing to kind of like what you were mentioning earlier in the podcast about, agencies, government agencies or social work or whatever. And the speed at which Mustangs for Mustangs, like that happened, and then the speed in which it would have happened using government resources or whatever, it's mind-boggling how quickly, and in those situations you need to act quickly, but that's amazing.
So it's obvious to see how the network that everyone has built and that brought together the good that can be done. The question I have is, do you think that this is unique to Prosser? Do you think that it's something that could be copied and done similarly in different communities, or is it something that's unique to this specific area?
And I really don't think that Prosser is exceptional in this kind of way or case. I believe the potential is there in almost every network that exists, including just in business networks and support groups. It doesn't have to be just in a charity context. We have some things in our favor in a small town where people know each other very well, and it's just an attribute of this particular town that people are very giving when you're in need. But on top of that, I think the potential for this kind of network exists pretty much everywhere. Maybe it wouldn't look exactly the same as the group that we've built. Maybe it would have to operate a little differently in an urban environment or in a larger scale group with more people in it. But the potential is there. So could it be copied? Absolutely it could, with a lot of individual touches and adjustments for on-the-ground realities. But yes, and boy, would I love to see that. Just where this took place in other communities in a way that was as powerful for them as it has been for me.
I want to see it too. I can't remember if we were all talking together about this or if I was talking to somebody else. Actually, another Mustang, my friend Derek, another Mustang, we were talking and chatting about county local governments, and I was thinking, I had this idea, and I was like, what if for every county we had, you have your elected officials, commissioners, treasurer, auditor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You had somebody who was a digital community manager, or at least, just like trying to establish, what a online community looked like for every single region. I was thinking about that. So might have to take it to the legislature. They're almost done. They're still doing it, but I don't know if they'll have time this season.
Another former student of mine, Alana, just lives 30 miles away in the Tri-Cities. And as soon as the quarantine and COVID and the shutdown happened, she started a Facebook group just saying helping others in the Tri-Cities during COVID. And hers is simply a message board where people can post needs and connect to themselves, kind of, for lack of a better comparison, a Craigslist of need, where people simply post what they're looking for and other people help to direct them. And all Alana has to do is just approve what goes on the page to keep it within the parameters. So they're not an IRS approved charity. They're not dealing with funding or training. It's literally just using that page as a focal point to address need in their community. And that's inspiring to see.
I'd love to see, Brett, you creating some sort of network, some sort of national network where you could train other community managers to run these type of groups. I would sign up. I would come. I would do it. I'm like already coming up with what name would I use for the group in Washougal?
In your spare time. In your spare time.
Please do think about that, especially with the skill set that you have. And you probably also know people in your network that would be interested in helping with that. I highly encourage you to do so on any level that you feel comfortable.
All right. And we're going to keep highly encouraging you to just train everybody and highly encourage everyone else to, so that we've just got everybody highly encouraged to help each other.
Well, one thing I know
we'll have
that
to
we're
start
kind
a
of
support group too.
Yeah, seriously.
I was going to say, though, that there's something that I know that we're coming up on time, but something that I think I really want to, well, Brett, you inspire me to do social media for good. You know, in the days when the politics is just weighing you down or people are arguing on the internet and you're just like, gosh, I mean, I'm a social media manager, so I have to be there anyway. But when you want to just check out from your own personal stuff and just not even look at it, it just, that storm of a negativity is going to live on with or without me on the internet. So if I check out and don't do anything about it, it's still going to be there, and nobody is standing up and doing something good, you know? So it's kind of, you know, this example, Mustangs for Mustangs, like you're saying, it is replicable in other places, but it also is just, you know, really literally anybody can do it, and we kind of need people to do it because social media is everywhere. Everyone has it. It's not, we're not gonna put this, it's not gonna go away again ever. So it's kind of like we have to learn how to work with it, and yeah, use it for good. But anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is I want other people to be inspired to contribute in this way online and not get down in the dumps about people who are cuckoo bananas online. Just
So interesting. I would have thought to ask questions about how you can handle it emotionally and how you manage that stress, but it is almost the opposite, isn't it? Doing something makes you feel much better than not doing something.
One of the phrases I post on a fairly regular basis is, "We are not helpless in the face of need." And most of the time people feel like they're helpless. They shake their heads. This is a horrible situation. I sure wish they could find some help, as opposed to finding a way to be a part of the solution. And that's wonderfully empowering. Now I don't have to worry about that person anymore. I know they got taken care of in the group that I'm a part of. And taking that weight out of your own mind about your community and your friends and your family, that has its own value. It is heavy to carry around sometimes, the things that you know about what's happened to people that you care about and have invested in, but it's well worth it. Well worth it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
carrying all that weight makes you a little bit stronger, doesn't it? All right. Well, I feel like we got everything out of this that I was hoping to. So if it's okay with you, we have one question that we always ask at the end, since we are always talking about, social media managers, and you're a social media manager managing the group like you do. I like to check in on the personal level. How is your actual relationship with social media? You manage everything in the group on the side, but like, how you in social media doing,
Right. Just as everybody probably, because you're exposed to everything that's on social media, there are good days and bad days for certain, and people that you're sometimes disappointed in, and then people that you're uplifted by. But as intensively as I have to interact with social media on a daily basis and have for years, I know there's probably going to come a point where I'm completely divorced from it. Where I set it all down and just am not engaged in that way for a while to allow my brain to experience something different. I like to harness everything that's good about this for sure, but at some point I'll need to have a diet of something else.
Brett, thank you so much. Adrienne, thank you for thinking of Brett as we brought up this subject. I think this was just a very good example, and I learned so much just from listening to you, Brett. I always think about how much more difficult it would be to start doing things that, that organize communities and that bring help. And I think about all the extra weight that it will carry. And I don't think as much about how much better you feel when you're moving towards something with purpose. And I'm very grateful for you bringing that to us and to our listeners too. So thank you so much for coming and being with us.
Wonderful opportunity, and I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, Adrienne, and thank you, Lacey.
All right. Well, if any of you who are listening want to learn more about this, we have our Spry Space Facebook group where we'll be talking about the podcast within the group. We're also going to have Brett on a panel later in the month, so you can look out for information about that, and you can pick his brain on social media for good. But in the meantime, we just hope you have a wonderful night. We're grateful for your time, and we hope that you keep learning. We will talk to you all soon.